My name is Robin Hesselgesser, and I'd like to welcome you to the show. This show is really about creating change. So the people that you meet and the stories that you hear every week will hopefully empower and inspire you to make positive change in your life. So whether it's about your financial status or your career or relationships or just wanting to live your best life. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us today. I'd like to introduce our guest for today. This is Tom Lloyd, and he is the founder of Funding College Organization. Tom, thank you so much.
Welcome
to the
Robin,
show.
Thank you for inviting me.
I appreciate you coming in, and you flew all the way from Arizona where the weather is just a little warmer than it is here today in Nebraska.
True, very true.
So welcome to Nebraska. And
Thank
you lived here, you grew up
I did.
here.
I actually grew up here and went to grade school here at Pius X and had the first few memories in my life here in Omaha.
Yeah, well, we welcome you back.
Thank you.
One of the reasons I wanted to have you on the show is I just love your story and your organization and the things that you try to do for different communities across the United States. So why don't you tell us a little bit about College Funding Organization and how that came to be,
okay,
and why it's so important to you.
Well, it started actually back in the late 70s and came about for two reasons. Number one, I was in a financial business, and one of the concerns that I always received from parents that I spoke with was their concern about how they were going to pay for college for their children. One of the biggest challenges parents face is where they're going to get the money for college, especially as costs escalate. Then probably the most motivating part was the fact that I had 4 children, and they were all born a year apart.
Ooh.
So in middle school, I realized that my children were all going to be in college at the same time, and even though things were going along well, my wife and I were both well employed, coming up with the kind of money for one child in college is challenging, let alone 4 at one time.
Absolutely.
So that was my biggest motivation. How can I find out how do people get money that they need to help their children get the education they deserve? And that was really our primary motivation.
And you started that when?
We officially chartered our organization as a community service organization in 1980, in January 1980. So this month we've celebrated our 40th anniversary.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about your story and how, one of the things that we talk about on the show is a lot of times we are motivated by change in the wrong ways. In other words, we wait until something happens and then we're reacting to change. And if I understand your business model correctly, you're about creating the change before it gets away from you.
Very much so. In fact, identifying us as change agents is a supreme compliment from my point of view. Most parents and students don't really realize what the challenges of paying for college can mean these days, with college costs continuing to escalate. And so we take an approach of reaching out to parents as early as middle school, when their children are in 6th, 7th, 8th grade, and certainly throughout high school. And any student who has a year or more of college ahead of them can benefit from the services that we provide, which is to help them tap into the largest single source of money that most people don't even know about, commonly referred to as college endowment money. And these are the gifts that generous former students and alumni and their families have given back to the colleges and universities that their students attended. And it represents a sizable amount of money, some $600 billion.
Billion?
With a B.
Wow.
That parents and students often never hear about. And as you probably know, we have a huge student loan problem in this country now.
Yes.
$1.6 trillion in student debt. That's the most outstanding debt in our whole economic base. And we're trying to help parents understand, no matter what their social or economic background might be, that there is money available for college if they know the right colleges to approach, how to approach them, and how to go about negotiating with the schools to get the very best possible award package for their students to pay for education.
I've got to believe that most people, as you said, are not aware that there are endowments available. I know when I was getting ready to go to college, my parents were divorced, and my father he looked much better on paper financially than my mother did.
Yes.
And I knew that if I turned his income in, I wouldn't be able to qualify for student loans. So
Yes.
I turned my mother's information in, and I got into debt up to my eyeballs with out-of-state tuition, college
Yeah.
loans. And I still remember to this day, the day that I wrote my last check, I was 34 years old.
Wow.
Yeah. So I didn't know anything like this ever existed. And I bet you a lot of our viewers out there think that there are no other options other than to get a student loan. But if you're of a certain economic bracket, maybe you can't even do that.
Well, there's really two buckets of money for kids to go to college these days.
Okay.
One based on financial need. And there is a federal financial aid form that most parents and students know about. They must complete when their children are in college and all the way through, year after year that they're in school. And that federal financial aid form, going by the acronym FAFSA, is the form that parents often think have to do with financial aid. If I don't qualify, then it doesn't mean get any money. Well, that's really only for need-based financial aid, which represents less than 5% of all the money that's available to help children go to school these days.
Really?
By far the largest pool of money is this $600 billion that I mentioned to you, commonly referred to as endowment funds. And these are the gifts that have been given to the school. And if your viewers have gone to college, and their college knows where they live, probably not many months have passed when you receive a letter from your college asking for your generous contributions. Mm-hmm. That money, which is given freely to many colleges in appreciation for the education we received, is the money that most people never hear about. And after you went to college, the federal government changed the rules on student loans, so financial wherewithal in the family didn't really matter anymore. Now anyone can get student loans as far as students are concerned, and parents who are creditworthy can get almost an unlimited amount of loans. And unfortunately, a lot of the colleges and universities have taken advantage of that situation and forced a huge amount of student loan debt on both students and parents. And you mentioned paying into your 30s on your student loans. I know of people who are retired who are still paying on student loan debt because they just simply had so much money, hundreds of thousands of dollars in some cases, that they're trying to get rid of. There's no other way to get rid of that loan other than paying for them.
Right.
No other way.
Absolutely. So I'm curious, obviously you have your organization and you have your team of people and you help people across the United States. But why do we need you? Before I met you and heard a little bit more about your company, I was thinking, isn't this what school counselors are for? Isn't this what those people are for, to be able to help their students be able to apply and get that fund? I mean, how does that differ from?
Well, that's a great question. In fact, I'm happy to say that I attended college here in Nebraska at Chadron, Nebraska, which at that time was a teacher's college.
Sure.
And so I went there to become a high school counselor. And even though they taught us what kind of credentials a student would need to have upon graduation in order to get into college, they taught us how to help the students get good SAT, ACT test scores, what kind of profile they would need to present to qualify to get into school. Very little education is done with our educators on how to get the money, because getting the money is really the student and parents' responsibility. Sure. And even though the high school counselors do a great job of helping them choose a career path, making certain they take the right curriculum, get the proper grades and benchmarks so that they can get access to the education they want, the number one reason why in some states less than half of the students who start college, finish college, is usually financial. They either don't want to go into debt or they just simply run out of resources, and rather than go into financial debt, decide to forfeit their education. And forfeiting education and the value that that human being could bring to our society with a good quality education is a terrible waste.
Absolutely.
So helping families get the money they need to make college a reality became our mission. And so far we have over 50,000 families that we've worked with all across the country, and we have representation in all locations and always looking for others who would like to help us reach more people.
Absolutely. So tell me a little bit about how the process actually works.
Yes, the magic to the whole process, if there is any, is knowing which schools to apply to and how to get the money once you've applied to the schools. In the common scenario, a student says, well, I'd like to go to a great college, University of Nebraska, for example, or OU or Creighton. And they get their focus on getting into that school, and then once they get into the school, then they try to figure out how they're going to pay for it.
Right.
We discovered that the greatest source of competition for money for college comes from competition between schools. So we encourage students to apply and get accepted to anywhere from 6 to 12 colleges of their choice that match their profile. We help them by reaching out to those schools that over the last 40 years we've learned have been the most, I guess you could say, generous with their endowment money. And we get the student accepted to multiple schools and then essentially teach the student how through a process of written communication they can negotiate and increase the amount of funding that a college would offer. Colleges do not like to lose students to their competition. And the main reason is, once that student has graduated from that school, as many of your viewers will know, you hear from your college regularly till the day you go to meet your maker, asking for contributions. And colleges don't make their money by the tuition, fees, room and board, books and supplies that we as parents pay for when our children go. They make the majority of their revenue through the management and investment of their huge endowment funds. Some colleges, Harvard for example, has over $39 billion of endowment money in their endowment fund, and many public, private, state colleges have hundreds of millions and billions of dollars that they have access to, if you know how to get them to use that money in your students' favor.
What percentage of that money do you feel actually gets used?
A very small percentage. The amount of endowment growth in the endowment funds that the colleges and universities report to the IRS every year continually increases. And the reason why is because they never really get rid of the money. They simply say, oh, you want to come to our school? It's $50,000 a year to go here. We're going to give you a $20,000 scholarship. But you never go to the mailbox and find a $20,000 check.
Yeah.
You find an award letter. And the award letter says, the price of attending is $50,000. Here's $20,000. Now send us the other $30,000. So essentially the college takes the $20,000 out of their left pocket, puts it back in their right pocket, and what college scholarships really are is a discount for attending. And that discount is negotiable. Colleges will say they don't negotiate if you ask them, but we have 40 years of evidence that they do. And we see students come in with a $5,000 or a $10,000 a year award letter, and by the time we finish the negotiation, that amount will double, triple, and sometimes even more than that with the proper negotiation. So knowing which schools to approach and how to approach them is the key.
So I have a question.
Sure.
So we are sitting deep in Husker territory.
Absolutely.
You remember that.
I do.
And you still follow
I do. I still have my
You still
red.
follow our college?
I still have my
All right,
red
well,
hat.
I noticed the outfit. You're right in keeping with our school colors. So if if my daughter or son has grown up here and they know
Yes.
they want to go to Creighton Law, or they know they want to go to UNL,
Yes.
why would they want to take time and effort to apply to other universities?
Well,
But you
that's-
encourage that.
We do. In fact, not only do we encourage it, we require it. Because we know from our 40 years of experience, calling the school and begging for more money doesn't work. They say, well, you filed the financial aid form. We've got some good news and bad news. The good news is you've got a great student. The bad news is when we follow the financial aid formula, the federal methodology, they call it, you don't qualify. You're not eligible for Pell Grants and other need-based grants, which is really true for most families that are making even more than $50,000 a year. But knowing that these colleges have huge endowment funds, if you can get the right pool of colleges to compete with Creighton, with OU, with the University of Nebraska and Lincoln, the college will change its financial position in order not to lose that student to their competition. College is big business, and colleges know that when it comes down to the final decision for college, money does matter. And the more money that competing colleges offer, the more likely, even your favorite school, is to step up and provide you with more awards. And if in fact they don't provide you with more awards, and having adequate money so that you don't go into debt or spend down your retirement or savings is important to you, then negotiation is really the key. Having other choices. So that if the school at your favorite school decides they're not going to give you any more, instead of ending up at a school that certainly isn't what you'd hope to go to, or maybe even a local or a community college when you've got the grades to get into major colleges and universities, now you have other choices. So at the very least, you have other choices. But most often, with good selection of colleges, knowing which schools to approach and how to approach them during the negotiation process, you can get your favorite college, sharpen the pen, and give you the money you need to help you go without going madly into debt.
What would you say to the family that says, well, Tom, we're aware, we've got 3 kids that are going to be going to college 2 to 3 years apart. And we've decided that we're going to take money out of our 401k or our savings plan, so we've got it covered. What would you say to that family?
Well, first of all, if you had no 401k money or any other resource, home mortgage equity or any other thing like that, if you had to, you can pay for college if you had to with loans, student loans. But when you get ready to retire, and you've depleted your retirement savings, your 401k, your 403b, whatever kind of retirement plan you have, pretty hard to go to the bank and say, you know, I'd like to retire now. I'm going to need about $5,000 or $6,000 a month. Could you send me a check every month? The bank has a way of saying, yeah, okay, how are you going to pay us back?
Yeah.
And when you get to that retirement part of your life, there are oftentimes no other resources for paying that money back.
Sure.
So by having access to the endowment money of the college and university, students can use that resource, which was given to the college for that purpose. Unfortunately, some colleges just forget to tell you they have $100 million in the bank, and that if you would do certain things, perhaps write certain essays, fill out certain applications, that you can gain access to those resources. So that's what our process is about. It's about educating the students and the parents to help them know where the resources are. We've never had a parent call us and say, you know what, we got entirely too much money.
Yeah, we're going to give it back.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things I really like about your platform is that you truly do ingrain all parties involved, and it's a team effort.
It
The
is.
parents are involved, each student is involved, your team is involved.
That's right.
And it really is a combined effort.
It is, in
Everybody has to
fact,
do their part.
we have a slogan, we call it the power of working together, because it is a collaborative effort. Everyone wants their children to be productive, successful, have a good life, live a good quality life and contribute to our society. And so through our collaborative effort with students, parents, teachers, counselors, any family members, community members who are encouraging these families, working together, we can come up with that money for nearly any student. And we're able to do it. We're a membership organization. We have a small annual dues of $100 a year and a small contribution that the families make to participate, which is less than what they'd pay for a semester of books when they send their kids to college. So it's within reach of anyone who really wants a good quality education for their child, and their student needs to be willing to commit just a little bit of time, maybe 30 minutes a week, to reading emails. We reach out to the colleges on their behalf. We connect them with foundations and donors that have given money to their school to help them help someone like themselves. So that's where the money comes from.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, Tom, I really appreciate you being here today.
Sure.
You're going to stick around a little while.
Yes.
In our next episode, we're going to talk a little bit more in detail about what that means to the student and how we combine those resources. And I know you have a special story you want to share with our viewers, so.
Well, yeah, I do. Would you like me to share that with you now?
Well, I think we're going to wait until our next episode, but
all right. I do
certainly
indeed.
appreciate you being here with us today, and
thank you
so
for having
much.
me.
Thank you. We appreciate you being here with us today, and we'll see you next time. Thank you. This is Robin Hesselgesser. Thank you for joining us today. Next week, we hope to inspire and empower you to make an even better change in your life. See you next week.